Hi, this is Brent, and today we're going to continue with the application we've been working on, this Grateful Moments app. And in this video, we're going to create an algorithm for badges so that as people add moments and entries, they'll receive a badge based on some logic that we're going to add. So if you've been following along, we've already got the project started. If you don't have the project, you can go ahead and download it here. You do need to download the project files to get the badge icons that we're going to use in the app. So go ahead and download the project files. And from here, when they're opened, go ahead and unzip that folder. And inside the folder, you're going to have the project. If you don't have it already, you can go ahead and open that one. And then you have an assets folder. And inside the assets folder are a bunch of images and files. And so here we have a badges folder and a moments tab.svg file. I'm going to go ahead and open the project that I've already been working on from the previous videos. So we'll go ahead and open that. And then we will select the folder over here in the project, go to the assets file, and then go back to the folder where you've downloaded things. And then here we're going to select, and then I'll press Control and select these two items and then click. Well, we can hold Shift. There we go. Shift and click. And now I've got these selected. I'm going to click and drag and go ahead and add them to the project. And so now these files will become available in the app. Now we want to create a file that'll keep track of the badge information. And so if we go to the models and we right click and we choose new file from template, and then we want a Swift file, choose next, and we're going to call this badge details. And this is going to be an enum, and we're going to have a lot of values in this one. So just follow along as we go here. I'm going to copy and paste because there's a lot to type and it's just easier to copy and paste. So that's why we have the written tutorial. So the first thing I'm going to do is in the written tutorial, I'm off screen, you can't see it, but just know that I'm selecting, copying, and let's paste in here. If you select all the text and press Control-I, it's going to re-indent. So what we have is these different cases that a badge, these are values, these are badges they can earn. So if these are set up as achievements, and these are the ones that are currently defined. You could continue to follow this pattern and add more. But at the moment, what we have is the cases that tell us which are the options. And then we return a string for the requirements so that the user knows how to earn that badge. We want to also add a congratulatory message. And again, I'm going to copy and paste for the sake of our content. You'll see a little pop-up. That's just because I'm using an app to share my monitors. I'm actually on two different computers. Let's go ahead and paste that. And again, if I select the text and then press Control-I, it's going to re-indent. So now we have a message. So now based on each badge, they can get a congratulatory message. I'm going to go ahead and copy and paste the rest of the content from the tutorial because, again, there's a lot of information here. So bear with me. We're just going to copy it and paste it, and then we'll talk about it here one second. So up here above the requirements, I'm going to paste in a whole bunch of stuff. And if I select and then re-indent. Now it's throwing some errors, and the reason for that is we need to import SwiftUI so that it can reference things like color and image resource that sort of thing. So that takes care of the errors. So what we have is we're returning an image, and the image resource, there's different images based on whether the user has unlocked or whether they have not unlocked. It's a locked badge. Then there's a color based on each entry. So there's a value. We've created these colors previously, but those will load based on the computed property. So when we have selected the badge and we've set the case for the badge detail, and then we say, give me the title, it will switch through all of the cases, and based on the case that is currently selected, it will return that string. And the same for the images and the other details. So now we have these computed properties. And the other thing we need to do in order to work with this enum, we're going to hard code the value as an int. And then we also need to make it codable so that we can save it in our SwiftData. And then we also want to make it case iterable. And what that does is it allows you to sort through all of these using some methods and things that are available within Swift. And so the enum is, again, inherits the int and codable and case iterable. We'll see that here later. Let's add another file in the models folder. Right click, choose new file from template, and it's a Swift file. We choose next, and we're going to call this a badge. So the badge details contains all the information available for the types of badges they can use, but then the badge object itself is going to keep track of what the user has earned and keep track of the unlocked and locked badges. So let's start by creating a class. So we're going to say class badge. And then we're going to have a variable called details. So this will be the badge details that we can reference. And then we need an init. So go ahead and do this init. You can do the autocomplete version. And then finally, we want to add, we want to import SwiftData so that we can reference this as a model. So then we say at mod, and the model allows it to be saved in our SwiftData. Let's create an extension on the badge class so that we can reference these in our previews. And so we say extension and badge. And then we're going to say static var sample, and that'll return a badge. And that's going to be let badge equal badge, and we'll create it with details, and we'll pass in first entry, and then we're going to return badge. So now we can always have access to a sample badge that we can use in our previews. Now we want to create the achievement, the badge detail view, so that we can see what badge we've earned and all the details associated with it. So in the achievements folder, we want to right click and choose new file from template. And this will be a Swift UI file. Choose next. And we're going to call this badge detail view. And now we'll be able to reference the badge. So we need a variable that says var badge, and it'll be of type badge. And then in the preview, we want to pass in badge and then dot sample. We can turn on the preview, and now we can add some stuff that we can change. So let's start by creating a V stack, and we'll give ourselves some spacing, and we'll say 8, and then I'm pressing tab, and then I'm pressing return. And now inside the V stack, I'm going to say image, and we're going to show the badge.details.image. And then let's make this, we're going to make it resizable. We're going to add an aspect ratio, and we're going to say dot fit. and then set the frame width. We're going to say 140, and then height is 140. And then let's put a spacer, and what that will do is move everything to the top. Now let's add some styling to the VStack itself. So we're going to say dot padding, and then we're going to say frame, and the width will be 320, and the height will be 410. And then we say background. The background is going to be a color, and it's going to be the badge.details.color. And then we'll set an opacity as 0.8. Okay, it auto-completed. I didn't type the right. It should be background. Background. So now we've set the background color. And then we set a clip shape. And we're going to do rounded rectangle. And we're going to say corner radius of 16. And so then notice we have the rounded corners. Again, what's happening is we are pulling all of this information from the badge details enum. And because the badge, if you click and we go back, you press Command and click on the sample, you go back here. Remember, we're creating a badge and we're saying it's the first entry. And if I click Command, click that. And so the first entry means that that's the case that we reference. And so every time we pull the information, when we say, give me the color, it's taking the color for first entry. And so now it returns that. So you can see the power of using these computed variables in an enum like this, so that you can have reference to multiple types of badges and other objects that you want, and then get the information you need based on the selected case. So that's pretty powerful. Okay, I'm going to click back. I'm going to go back to my badge detail view. Let's go ahead and add underneath the image. We're going to add the title. So we're going to say text. And we're going to say badge.details.title. And then we're going to set the font, and we're going to say .title.bold. And then we're going to do another text. And we're going to say badge.details.congratulatory message. And then set the font style to .body. And then on the VStack, we want to add some global styles to everything that's in here. And what we want under the frame, we're going to say dot multi-line text alignment. We're going to say dot center. And so now the text is centered. And then we want to set the foreground, dot foreground style to white. So now the text shows up white against the background colors. Now we want to be able to load all of the badge details information and save it when the SwiftData is initialized, when the app launches for the first time. So in the models folder, let's right click and we'll say new file from template, and we'll call it, we want a Swift file, and then we'll call it badge manager. And inside that, we need to reference SwiftData. So we say import SwiftData. And then we'll call this a class, and this will be badge manager. And we want a variable reference to the model container so that we can add content to it. So we're going to say model container, and it's the model container object. And then we have an init. And go ahead and do the autocomplete, press tab, and now it's set up, assigns the model container when it gets created. So here, the badge manager is going to take care of storing all the badges in SwiftData so that we keep track of what has been awarded and then figure out and save everything as we go. Let's add a method, a function called load badges if needed. And this can throw an error, so we'll say throws. And we're going to say let context equal model container dot main context. So what we're doing is we're loading all the badges ahead of time so that we can then query and pull the data as needed. And so if the badges have been loaded already, we don't need to do that. So we're setting this up so it happens once when the app launches. In order to figure out if we need to load specific badges, we're going to use what is called a fetch descriptor. And so this lets you define the type of data that you want to fetch, and it can filter and sort and limit the results. So it takes care of pulling specific data for us. So we're going to say var fetch descriptor equals fetch descriptor. And we can pass in the type. So we're going to do the less than sign and we say badge, because that's the type of object we want to return. Here we're going to say fetch descriptor dot fetch limit equals 1, and then let existing badges equal, and then we're going to use a try, and so we're going to say context dot fetch, and then pass in the fetch descriptor that we just created. This pulls a list of existing badges, but if there's nothing there, then we need to go ahead and create the badges and save those. So what we'll do is we say if existing badges dot is empty, then what we need is to create for details in badge details dot all cases. This is where the case iterable comes in, because we're able to now iterate over all the cases, and it allows us to do that. So for each one of these, we're going to say context dot insert, and then we're going to say badge details, and it's going to be details. In order to access all of this, we want to go back to our data container, and inside the data container, specifically in the schema, we need now to add a reference to badge.self so that it knows to save this class, the badge class. Now we need to reference the badge manager so that we can reference it here. We'll say var badge manager, which is of type badge manager. And then in the model container, under the do, we need to create badge manager equals badge manager, and then pass in the model container, which is the one that's been created. The tutorial refers to the reason we're doing this is so that, the badge manager, you could pass it along as an environment variable, but because the badge manager relies on the model container, it's better to create a dependency. So what we've done is badge manager is dependent on the model container, and so we're providing that as part of the data container so that you're always referencing badge manager with relation to the data that's available under the data container. So that's referred to as a dependency. After we've created the reference to the badge manager, then we want to try, and we're going to do the badge manager.load badges if needed. So this will run every time the app launches for the first time. And so again, we're loading everything in one location. Let's go back to the badge class, and we want to add a reference to the moment that earned this badge. So we're going to create a var moment, and it's of type moment, and it's optional because it could be nil. And when we initialize it, we're going to say self.moment equals nil. So again, we're creating the relationship between a badge and a moment. And so one badge is referenced to one moment. So it's a one-to-one relationship. Let's add another property, and that's going to be a timestamp. So we're going to say var timestamp, which is a date. And again, it'll be optional. And then when we initialize it, we say self.timestamp equals nil. One thing to note, I'm capitalizing this S in stamp. It's just a habit. I don't know, because when you capitalize every other word, I'm just used to doing that. But the tutorial doesn't, and I don't think it matters. It's just a preference. You'll notice that we have a timestamp on the moment as well. So both badge and moment have a timestamp. The reason we're referencing a timestamp on the badge is that you remember you can delete a moment. And so we don't want to delete the badge that was earned by it. So in order to keep track of the badges, the badge needs to have a reference to the timestamp. So we're going to add a comment. This is from the tutorial. So it says use and then timestamp to determine if the badge is unlocked. And then it says a moment may be deleted, but the timestamp stays. And then once awarded, badges aren't relocked. So it's just a reminder as to why we're doing it this way. In our sample, we do want to set the timestamp. So we're going to say badge.timestamp equals .now. So that when the sample is being used, we have a timestamp associated with it so that when we update the UI, we can reference that properly. Let's go back to the badge manager. And here we need a method that will unlock badges. So we're going to say func unlocked. So unlock badges. So it's an action. And it's going to be a new moment of type moment. And then it can throw an error. So we're going to say throws. We want a reference to the context. So we're going to say let context equal model container dot main context. We want a reference to moments. And so we're going to get the list of moments. So we're going to say try context dot fetch, and we're going to say fetch descriptor, and we're going to pass in moment, and so it's going to return all the moments that it finds that's saved. And then we're going to get a list of all the locked badges. So we're going to say let locked badges equal, and we're going to say try context dot fetch, and we're going to do a fetch descriptor, and it's going to be of all the badges, badge, and then you can actually pass in a predicate. So we're going to say predicate, and we do the # predicate. We don't want the parentheses, we want the closure, and so we're passing in a method that says, so $0.timestamp equal nil, and let's see, close out our things. Okay, so let's talk about this. So what we're doing is we're saying we want all of the badge objects where the timestamp is nil. You remember that a locked badge doesn't have a timestamp on it. When you earn a badge, we're going to add a timestamp. So that's why we're saying give us all the ones that are still locked. Now that we have that data, we want to loop through. So we're going to say var newly unlocked. And this will be an array of badges, badge objects, whoops, equals, so we have an empty array. And then we're going to loop through. We're going to say for badge in locked badges. Then we're going to do some things here in order to check the locked badges, and based on the moments, we will see if we've earned and can unlock a badge. We'll do a switch, and we're going to switch against the badge.details, and we're going to say case.firstEntry, where moments.count is greater than 1. And then we're going to say newly unlocked.append badge. So we're not done yet. It's going to throw an error. We're going to go through this, and this will make sense once we fix it. Actually, we can add a default. So we say default, come on, and we'll just say continue. So that'll get rid of the error. So what happens is in a switch statement, when you're switching against something, it has to be what they say is exhaustive, meaning you have to account for every option available. In order to do that, if you're not worried about the other options at the moment, you can just pass a default, so then that satisfies that requirement. So again, what's happening is we're checking, okay, the first entry where moments, if the moments array has more than 1, then that means they've earned the first entry. And so then we say newly unlocked, and we say append badge. So we've added the first entry badge to our array of newly unlocked badges. So now we need more cases in order to figure out whether you've earned enough for the other badges. We can actually string these cases together. If you, after the 1 on this line, you can add a comma and then press return. And now we can add another case. So we can say .5 stars, where moments.count is greater than or equal to 5. So it's going to fall through, and it's going to say, whoops, so just temporarily. So what's happening is it checks the first case, and if that works, it's going to add a badge. And then it's going to check the next one, and if that is more than 5, then you've also earned a badge. We're going to unlock the shutterbug, where moments.count, and then we're going to loop through. We're going to say where, and then we're going to do a function. We're going to say $0.image is not equal nil. And then we go over here, and we're going to say if this is greater than or equal to 3. So what that means is the shutterbug badge, if you have more than 3 moments with an image, then you've earned that badge. The next one is called expressive, where moments.count, and then we're going to loop through where, and then again we're going to do this, we're going to do the curly brace so that we can do another function. We're going to say 0.image is not equal nil, and so 2 ampersands. We're going to say not, so the exclamation point, $0.note.is empty. And then we're going to say greater than or equal to 5. So what happens here is the shutterbug, let's see, make sure, oh, I need to put a comma after that one. So the shutterbug, you earn that if you have 3 or more moments that have an image. But expressive is saying you've earned it if you have an image and the note is not empty, meaning you have a note. So now if you have more than 5 or more of these moments where you have an image and a note, then you've earned the expressive badge. And then there's one more, which is called the .perfect 10. And that's where moments.count is greater than or equal to 10, and locked badges.count, count equals 1. So that means you've unlocked all the badges. So you've earned the perfect 10. At this point, we've looped through all the badges, and so now we can go ahead and unlock them by adding the moment and the timestamp. So here we're saying for badge in newly unlocked, we would say badge.moment equals new moment, and then the badge.timestamp equals new moment.timestamp. So now what we've done is we've assigned the moment to the badge and we've added the timestamp to the badge. So now we've unlocked the badge in the system. Now that we have this set up, we can go ahead and unlock the badges in our sample data. So you remember, if we go back to data container, we have some sample data. So here, where it says include sample moments, we're going to update this so that we say try load sample moments, and in here we're going to update this so that we can try badge manager dot unlock badges and pass in the moment. So here, for each moment, we are going to unlock. Let's see, try badge manager. Oh, we need to update the load sample moments so that it throws an error. Because remember, when you're working with SwiftData, you need to be able to capture any errors, because it's possible that accessing the data in the SwiftData container could throw an error. And if you don't handle it, then it's going to crash the app. And so here you're passing in and you're saying this function could throw an error, and that's when, and you use the try call in order to throw an error if it fails. So now we have badges unlocked in our sample data. Now let's go to the moment entry view, and every time a new moment is created, then we're going to unlock the badge to see if we've earned a badge. And so in the data container insert, where we insert a new moment in this do catch block, what we'll say is we're going to also say try data container dot badge manager dot unlock badges and the new moment, and it's going to be the new moment that was created. So then now whenever you add a new moment to the application, it's going to check and unlock the badge if you've earned a badge. Let's go to the badge detail view, and we want to add the timestamp. So under the spacer, we say if let timestamp equals badge.timestamp, then we'll present the following. We're going to say text timestamp, and then the style is going to be .date, and then the font is going to be .caption2.bold. You see how that updates. So now at the bottom, we've got the timestamp. Now we want to present the list of badges that we've earned. And so we're going to create in the achievements, right click, choose new file from template, and we're going to say achieve, whoops, sorry, got ahead of myself. We need a Swift UI file, and then next, and then the title of that is going to be achievements view. Okay, here We're going to delete the text, and we're going to create a subview. We're going to say private var content stack, and it's going to return some view, and then we're going to add that content stack to the body. And then at this point we're going to do a vstack, and we're going to have a text. We're just going to temporarily show this, your badges, and then a text that says locked badges. Then we want to be able to reference the sample data. So in the achievement view preview, we're going to say .sample data container. So then we can load the sample. Let's wrap the content stack in a scroll view. And then let's give our vstack some styles. We're going to say .padding and .frame. We're going to say for the frame, we're going to say, let's do max width .infinity, so it fills the width of the screen. Let's go ahead and wrap the scroll view in a navigation stack. So you right click, choose embed, and we're going to say navigation stack. And then on the scroll view itself, we're going to say the .navigation title is achievements. So now we have our title. Now let's import SwiftData, and we're going to load some queries. So we're going to have a query at query, and we're going to do a filter, and then a predicate, and of type badge. So it's going to return badge objects. And then we're going to say, in the closure, we're going to say $0 timestamp is not equal nil. And this we will assign to private var unlocked badges, which should be an array of badge objects. So what we've done is we have a query that filters for badges only, and then we check for each badge, is the timestamp not nil? That means you've unlocked the badge. And now we also want a query for the ones that are locked. So we say filter, and again we say predicate, and they're going to be badge objects, and we're going to say $0.timestamp is nil, equals nil. So you use the two equal signs, so you say is equal to nil. We're going to assign that to private var locked badges, and that'll be an array of badge objects. Okay. Now let's present those. So in our content stack, underneath the badges, where the text where it says your badges, we're going to say for each, and we're going to iterate over the unlocked badges array. And in the closure, we're going to say badge in, and it's going to be text badge.details.title. So now we have our list of badges that we've earned. And then underneath locked badges, we're going to say for each, and we're going to iterate over the locked badges array. And then in that closure, we say badge in, and it's going to be a text that is badge.details.title. So now we've got the unlocked badges. We're going to style all this here in a minute, but we've got the layout set up. You'll notice that the order kind of changes on these locked badges. Every time when we load, we make changes to the text, and so we need to enforce the sort order. You remember that when working with SwiftData, the sorting is not guaranteed. So what we'll do is we'll create a computed property that sorts the locked badges. So here underneath the content stack, let's create a private var sorted locked badges, which expect an array of badge objects, and then we're going to say locked badges dot sorted, and then we're going to do a method. We're going to say $0 dot details dot raw value is less than $1 dot details dot raw value. So what it does is we're making a comparison, and we're comparing each locked badge. And then from here, under the for each, we're going to use the sorted locked badges. So now notice how that changes, because the perfect 10 is always the last badge that you can earn. So we want to make sure that shows up there. We want to sort the unlocked badges as well, but for those we want to sort them by the timestamp they were earned. And then we can also sort them by the title. So if you happen to earn more than one badge on the same day, you're going to list them based on the title. So let's create another computed variable called private var sorted unlocked badges, and this will be an array of badge objects, and in the closure we're going to say unlocked badges dot sorted, and then we have a custom method, and we're going to say, let's use a parentheses because we're going to do two comparisons. We're going to say the $0 dot timestamp, and we're going to force unwrap it, and then we're going to say $0 dot details dot title is less than, and so we're combining those, so that's why we put the closing parentheses, is less than, and then we're comparing the $1 dot timestamp, going to unwrap that, and then $1 dot details dot title. So what's happening is this is comparing these two. Hold on, what did I miss? How about I spell things properly? Title. There we go. So we're comparing the timestamp and the title to the timestamp and the title of the next object. So it's going through and it's sorting each one of those. And then in order for us to reference those, we're going to say sorted unlocked badges. So now the badges are sorted based on when we, based on the timestamp associated with those. One thing to note, and we'll add a little comment here, is there's a precondition, meaning unlocked badges must have a timestamp. The reason for that is that we're forcing unwrapping, because you remember the timestamp is of type date and it could be optional, but we are saying that we know that a badge is unlocked because we've assigned a timestamp to it. So it's okay to unwrap them, to force unwrap them, because we know that it exists. Now we want to stylize the header. So right now it just says your badges and locked badges. So we're going to create a section header, and we'll do that by creating, again, a function. We're going to say func header, and we're going to use underscore, and we're passing in text, which is a string, and then we're going to return, where we use the dash and the greater than sign, some view. And inside our method, we're going to update this as we go, but for now we're just going to say text, and then we're going to set some font dot subheadline dot bold, and then dot padding. So we've got some stylized. Now for the text here, we can replace that and just say header, and then your badges. So notice it's stylized here. And we can just change that from text to header. So what we're doing is we're passing in text and then we're formatting it here. And in a second, we'll be able to modify this based on what's happening in the logic. Let's go back to our content view, and we want to present this as a tab view. So let's remove this placeholder stuff in our, in fact, we're going to replace the VStack completely. Here we're going to say tab view, and inside the tab view we're going to have a tab, and it's going to be moments, and the image is going to be the moments tab, which is a file. You remember we added it at the beginning. And then we're going to pass the moments view is the object that is going to load. The moments view is the view we want when we're selecting that moments tab. Now let's add another tab, and we're going to say achievements, and it's going to have a system image that's going to be metal.fill, and then we will show the achievements view. So here we can select the achievements view and the moments. And then for this preview, we can pass the sample data container dot sample data container. So now we actually have real content, and we can see the tab for the moments and tab for achievements. Let's keep working on the achievements view so that we can make this a little more stylized and give ourselves some more UI custom views to work with. So let's go in the achievements folder. Let's create a Swift UI view. So new file from template. Make sure it's Swift UI view. Choose next. And we'll call this the locked badge view. We want to reference a badge, so we're going to say var badge, and then we need to pass in badge. We're going to use .sample. And then in the text, we'll say text badge.details.title. Let's embed the text in a H stack. And then let's, on the H stack, let's add some styling. So we're going to say padding. We're going to also say background. And we're going to say color dot secondary dot opacity and a 0.2. And then dot clip shape. Good old rounded rectangle. We love to see it. Corner radius, and then 16. So here we have a background color on this, on the H stack. Now let's add some more. Let's add the image. And here we're going to say image badge.details.locked image. And then we're going to make that .resizable. Set the frame width to 70, height to 70, and then padding, we're going to say dot trailing and set to 16. So now we've got some padding on the outside of the image. Let's embed the text, the title text in VStack, and set the alignment to dot leading and the spacing to 8, and then in the content press return, and in the code, let's see, hold on. I don't want that. I want that. Sorry, I just want those items. So We already had the content here. So alignment.leading spacing is 8, and then the badge title, and then we're going to set a font to .subheadline.bold, and then we're going to add new text, which will be the badge.details.requirements.font.caption. So again, these are the unlocked badges, and you'll see how they're grayed out because you haven't unlocked them yet. But then we have a title, and then we have the description of how the requirements, how do you access that badge. Underneath the V stack, let's give ourselves a spacer, and now it fills the width of the screen. So now we have this custom view for our locked badge. So let's go to the achievements view and use it inside our locked badges. Instead of a text, what we're going to do is we're going to say locked badge view, and then it passes in the badge. And now we have our list of badges that are unlocked. Now that we have the locked badge view set up, we want to work on the unlocked badge view. And for that, we're actually going to reference the badge detail view, and we're going to modify this so that it fits for the unlocked badge detail view. So the first thing we'll do is, with the badge detail view selected, press Command C to copy, and then press Command V to paste. So now we have a duplicate. When you have a duplicate of things, it's going to throw a bunch of errors. So let's fix that. Click in, and we want to change this to unlocked badge view. And then we need to change this title to unlocked badge view. And we also need to change it down here to unlocked badge view. Okay. So now what we've done is let's refresh the preview. So if this was not loading, I just clicked away and then clicked back, and then it reloaded the page just fine. Let's modify the size of this because we don't want it to be the full size like a detail view. We want to use it as a badge view. So we'll change the frame width to 70, and the height 70. Let's change the headline, the title, from title to headline, so the font size of the title is smaller. And then let's change the font size of the congratulatory message to caption 2.bold, so that's smaller. And then we need to change the width of the frame. We're going to set it up so that it's 210 by 225. So now it's much smaller. Now let's change the alignment on the V stack. We're going to say alignment dot leading, then a comma. So now that's leading. We're going to set a frame on the image so that it's dot frame. Set the max width to be dot infinity, and then the alignment to be dot center. And then we need to change the badge. Instead of showing the congratulatory message, we're going to say it's the requirements. And then we need to change the multi-line from center to dot leading. Now we want to wrap the entire view, the V stack, so that it's a navigation link, so that when you click this, it will take you to the detail view. So here, if I give myself a little space at the top, we're going to say navigation link, and then we will say it's going to navigate to the detail view, badge detail view, and pass in the badge. And then the label is going to be all of this here. And so we're wrapping this VStack. So now when I press this, actually what I have to do is, you're not going to see the behavior in the preview because you need to wrap the preview in a navigation stack so that you can see navigation stack. Oh, come on. Navigation stack, so that the preview will now behave like that. So here we're going from, here's the detail view, and here's the unlocked badge view, which is a smaller version of that. Now let's go back to the achievements view, and here we want to update these so that we're seeing a row of unlocked badges. And for that, in our content stack, we need to change the VStack to set the alignment to dot leading. And then inside the for each, we replace that and we pass in, we want the unlocked badge view, and it's going to be the badge. Now, currently it's all lined up vertically, so we'll fix that. Let's wrap we want to wrap the for each in a scroll view, and we're going to set it to horizontal scroll view. So the header, we want to keep the header in the same place, but now we want a scroll view that is set to dot horizontal, and we're going to wrap it around this for each right there. And in our for each, we're going to wrap that in an H stack. So now we have a horizontal scroll view, and our badges are laid out in a horizontal stack. And then you can click on one and go see the details. Let's add some styling to the scroll view. We're going to say dot scroll clip disabled, and then scroll indicators dot hidden. So now we don't see the little bar on the bottom of it. And scroll clipped disabled, it prevents clipping when the badges scroll beyond the view's bounds. So what's happening is when you see it, you can tell that, oh, there is something beyond the edge of the screen, so that the user knows, oh, I can click and drag to see more information. Now we also want to hide this. If the user doesn't have any unlocked badges, then we want to hide it. So if the badges are, let's say everything is locked, we want to hide the your badges. And so what we'll do is wrap underneath in the VStack on the your badges header. Above it, we're going to say if not unlocked badges dot is empty. And then underneath here, then we wrap it. So now they're saying if it's not empty, show the unlocked badges. And then the same thing, we're going to do the same thing if not locked badges. If there's no locked badges, we're going to hide it. So again, the behavior is if you have unlocked badges, then we show them. Otherwise, we hide it. If we have locked badges, if we don't have any locked badges, say we've earned everything, then we hide the locked badges area. Now we want to create a custom view that shows the badge next to the moment that they were unlocked. And so to do that, let's go to the moment object, and we're going to create a relationship from the moment to the badge objects. So you could potentially have multiple badges unlocked with one moment. So I think I misspoke earlier when I said they were one-to-one. So the badges you can actually have, on a moment, you could have more than one badge. So we're going to create a variable called badges, and its array of badge objects. And then we'll initialize that by saying self.badges equals an empty array. So again, now this creates a relationship between, so that when a badge gets added, it automatically updates the badge with the moment that it was added to. Let's go to the hexagon where we have our customized view, and we want to add an overlay. So if we go here at the bottom, we can say dot overlay, and here we're going to say alignment. Oh, come on. Dot, no, overlay, alignment dot top trailing. And then inside the overlay, we're going to say if let moment, then we're going to say hexagon accessory. Oh, the tutorial is, we haven't created this yet, but it's anyway, we haven't created this yet. That's why there's no, it's called hexagon accessory view, and it'll take a moment, and then it'll take a hexagon layout. Now we haven't created it, so it's going to throw an error, and then this is going to crash, and so that's always fun. Let's create the hexagon accessory view. Let's go to our custom views, right click, choose new file from template. And this is a Swift UI view. Choose next, and we call it hexagon accessory view. And then it's going to have a moment, let moment, and it's going to have a hexagon layout, which is of type hexagon layout. And then in the preview, we actually, instead of passing the hexagon accessory view, we're actually passing a moment hexagon view. And here it has a moment, which will be dot sample, and then a layout, which will be dot large. So the reason we're using the moment hexagon view is so that we can see the actual accessory that shows up here, which is what this text represents. So right here, this text represents what's showing up here in the overlay of the moment hexagon view. So that's why we're passing this in, so you can edit and see it in the preview. Let's declare a size property so that we can have a approximate, so the size will be relative to the larger size. So in this case, we're going to say private var size, and it's a CG float. And then we say hexagon layout dot size divided by 5. So this will return a percentage of the layout size. In the body, we want to get the image and some other information here. So we're going to have a helper function, helper variable that's going to give us a list of badges. So we say private var badges, and then it's an array of badge. Whoops. Oh my, what happened? Okay. Array of badge. And then here we're going to say moment.badges. So that's going to return the badges for us from the moment. And then here in the body, we're going to say if let badge equals badges.first. Then we want to create the image, and it'll be the badge.details.image. And then we set it to resizable. We set a frame width, which is size, and then height, which is the calculated size. And then we want a shadow with a radius of 2. In order to see this in the preview, let's go ahead and update the preview where we're going to see just a single badge. And later we're going to do multiple badges. And so here in there, we're going to pass in .sample data container. So now it pulls in the image, and notice we made it smaller and it sits up here in the top corner. We want to do some calculations so that this badge will sit in this little corner right here. And to do that, we're going to reference we're just creating, imagining we have a circle. So you have a circle that encompasses the entire hexagon. And then we want this specific point right here, which is going to be a certain angle in our circle. And so follow along. This will make sense after we get it done. But first we want to wrap this in a group so that we can apply an offset. And we're going to say dot offset. And we're going to calculate this. And so we haven't done it yet, so don't worry. Let's do a calculated property called private var y offset, which returns a CG float. And now we're going to do some fun math. So we're going to say let radius equals the hexagon layout dot size divided by 2, because you remember the radius is half of a diameter. And then there's a comment here that says 30 degrees points to the top right corner of the hexagon. So we want this corner right here, which is about 30 degrees. So we're going to calculate that. We're going to say let y offset from hexagon center equal. We're going to use sine angle dot degrees 30 dot radians times radius. And then we're going to return the radius minus the y offset from hexagon center minus size divided by 2. Okay, so now we have a y offset based on this calculation that is 30 degrees up from the center of the hexagon. So there's a long, complicated thing. You can look into this later, but you'll come across this when you're dealing with math in programming. Programming is not necessarily used to working in degrees. They're more used to working in radians. And radians is a type of measurement that can be translated into degrees. So this here, we're using a method angle dot degrees because we want a 30 degree distance. But we're converting it to radians because radians, I forget, again, it's one of those math things, but I learned it a long time ago. Basically, you will run across this every time you're working in computer graphics. Instead of working with 360 degrees in a circle, you're working with radians, which is much better for calculations. So now we've got this set up so that we have for one badge, if you've earned a badge on the moment, you'll see this badge indicator. But let's say you've added moments and you've unlocked 2 badges at once. Then we're going to show a different view for that. So here in our group, we're going to say if badges.count is greater than 1, then we're going to say text, and we want to use a plus sign, and then we're going to pass in the number. So badges.count, and then we're going to set it to bold, and then the frame, the width is going to be size times 0.5, And then the height is going to be size times 0.5. So again, it's a percentage. And then padding is 8. Let's create a preview that shows multiple badges. So we're going to go down here and add a preview that is multiple badges. And it's going to be a moment hexagon view. And for the moment there, we're going to pass in .image sample. And then the layout is going to be .large. And then we need to pass in the sample container. So now if we click over here, we've got multiple badges, image sample, layout.large. Let's double check everything. So we've got the badge, we've got the text, but we can't really see it. So let's keep going. Here in the group, let's set a background, .background, and we'll pass in an image. That'll be the blank image. And then the size is .resizable. And the frame is width will be size. And height will be size. And then shadow of 2. And then we set a foreground style, and we'll say .gray. Now, I made a mistake here. We need to update this so that it's an else statement if, so we're doing one or the other. And what was happening is I was doing both, and so that's why that wasn't showing. So now you can see the text and you can see the image. So again, we have an if, and then we have else if, and then we show the right one. Let's go ahead and extract this group into its own private variable because we want to add and manipulate some things here. And so if I just copy and paste, sorry, just go ahead and cut, so Command X, and then I create a private var badge view, and it returns some view. And then inside there I paste the group. So now we're here. Now in the body, we want a navigation link and the label. Let's go ahead and add the label. And it's going to be the badge view. So now we have that back, so now we can see it. But in the navigation link, we say if badges.count equals 1, then we're going to say badge detail view, and we're going to load the badge detail view. If it's more than 1, then we're going to say load the moment detail view, and we pass in the moment. Now we need to update the moment detail view so that when we load this and we have multiple badges, we can show that. So let's go to the moment detail view. And here in the contents stack, let's change this. We're going to, inside the V stack, we're going to wrap the moment in an H stack. And then here we'll add a spacer, and then we'll do a for each. And we're going to go through the moment.badges and say badge in. And so for each one of these, we're going to show the image badge.details.image, and then set it to resizable, and then the frame to 44, and the height to 44. So now we see the list of badges that we've earned in line with the timestamp text. And if we wrap this in a navigation link, then we can go to the badge. So for that, let's come up here and go ahead and type navigation link. And then in here for the label, we're going to wrap it around the image. And then it's going to take us to the badge detail view where we pass in the badge. So now when I click on the badge that I've earned, I can see the details. Pretty sweet. Let's go to the moments view and we'll make sure that everything, all the navigation works as expected. So here we've got some badges. So I have a badge on this one. If I click the badge, I can see the detail and then I can go into it. And then here, if I click this, it brings me to the view and I go right there. I know it's been a long video, but we're almost done with this section, with this tutorial. We're going to next, the last thing is we're going to calculate and show a streak showing that we've entered moments so that you're encouraging users to use the app by presenting them with how often, how many days they've been adding moments. Let's go to the achievements folder and right click and choose new file from template, and it'll be a SwiftUI view. We choose next, and we're going to say, we're going to call this streak view. Inside the streak view, we're going to have a variable called var number of days, and that'll be an int. And then in our preview, we say number of days, and we'll just say 23. In the body, we're going to pass in a hexagon with a border color dot secondary, and then the content. Before we get to the content, let's actually modify this. So right now, you remember we're referencing a hexagon that has a bunch of code that represents the UI that we're seeing. And right now we have this very thick line. Let's pin this. And if we go back to the hexagon class, and then we change the mask, there's a value that's called font weight. So we say font weight, and it's going to be dot ultra light. And then on the background, we also want to say dot font weight, weight dot ultra light. So now notice how it changes that. So that's what we want right there. Let's go back to streak view. And here in the body, we're going to say a V stack. And we're going to say spacing is 0. And then we want a text. And the text will be, we're going to wrap the number of days. So we do the backslash, open parentheses, number of days. Remember that string interpolation. And then the font, we're going to say dot system, and the size will be 70. And then we have another font, another text, that says days. And then finally, for the font on the entire VStack, we're going to say font dot callout. Let's add some text here at the top. So we'll say text, and it'll be streak. And then we do the backslash, parentheses, and we'll pass an image. And it'll be an image system name. It'll be flame.fill. And then we'll set the color.foreground style.ember. So now notice how we were able to add an image to the text, which makes it fun. So now we have a streak. So we've got the UI for that. Now we need a file to calculate the streak for us. So we're going to go to our logic folder, right click, choose new file from template. And this will be a Swift file. Choose next. And we're going to call this streak calculator. And here it'll be a struct streak calculator. And we're going to say let calendar equal calendar dot current. And we're going to have a function called func calculate streak. And then we're going to say for moments, which will be an array of moment objects. And then we're going to return an int, and then, opening and closing brackets. And for now, we're going to say return 0, so we get rid of the error. So there's some comments we can add. So this is going to, it counts the number of days in a row a moment has been saved. And then days are measured from the end of the day rather than whatever time of day the moment was created. So the way we do that, we say let start of today equals calendar dot start of day for dot now. And then we say let end of today equal calendar dot date by adding, and we say date components are going to be day 1 second. It's going to be -1, 2, start of today. And then an exclamation point to unwrap it. Okay, let's make sure we added all this right. It's kind of confusing. There's a lot going on. So we have calendar.date by, adding. I didn't type by adding. There we go. Okay. So what that does is we're calculating the current date, and we start at the beginning of the day, and then we go to the start of the next day, and then we see if that falls within this period of time. So it's basically every 24 hours. From here, we need to loop through days ago array, and it's going to be the moments, and we're going to reverse the moments array, and then we're going to map. We just want moments that have \timestamp, and then we're going to map, and we're going to pass in a closure that says calendar.date components, and it's going to be .day from $0 to end of today. And then we're going to use compact map all of the ones that have a day. So the way this works is the map, it applies a function to every element. So here we're creating a new array that transforms everything, that returns everything that's available that satisfies this comparison. And then a compact map, it filters everything and returns a non-optional array, meaning it returns everything that has a value in it. And so here we're combining a bunch of methods to get the results we want, which is we want all of the days that are in order, and we get the moments. We're returning all the moments that have a timestamp and that are in order from that have a day streak, meaning how many days in a row that they're related. So we're calculating, is this the start of today or the end of today? If it fits in that time frame, then that counts as one day. And then it checks the next one and says, is this in this time frame? And then it keeps going and it adds it, and compact map returns the filtered array of everything that has a value. Next, we need to calculate the streak to see how far we've gone, how many days in a row. And so we say var streak equals 0, and then we're going to loop through. We're going to say 4 days ago in days ago array. We will say if days ago is equal to streak, then streak plus equals 1. And then after all that, we return streak. So what this is doing is it's checking that right now the streak is 0. And if days ago for each one of these lists how many days, and if it is equal to 0, then we add 1. And then if there's one that says 1, then we add it, and it adds it up so that by the end it's calculated how many days in a row have been found, and then you return that streak. Now that we have this calculated, let's go back to moments view, and in the scroll view, in the path items, we want to wrap the path items. Let's uncheck that so we can see the moments view. We want to put the path items, which is everything that we're displaying, we're going to wrap this in a lazy V stack. And we're going to have some spacing of 8, and then pinned views will be section headers. And then we're going to wrap the path in a section like this, and then the header is going to be the streak header. Now we have to create this, so don't worry, we'll get there in 1 second. We're going to create a streak header. So we come down here, and inside, after the path items, we're going to say at view builder private var streak header, and it returns some view. And inside this, we're going to use the streak. So we're going to say let streak equals streak calculator dot calculate streak for moments, which is the array of moments. And we're going to say if streak is greater than 0, then we want an H stack, and inside the H stack we want a text, and the text is going to be, we use this verbatim, which is, it takes the streak, wraps it as a text, and then text, we're going to say image and a system image. We're going to do the flame, fill, set the foreground style to white so we can see it, and then add a spacer, And from here, we want to say font.subheadline.padding. Okay, so up here at the top on the left, you'll notice that we've got a streak. And it's a little number. And that's the streak. Now we're going to update this a little more. In the achievements view, let's go back and let's add a query to get our list of moments at query sort, and it's going to be passing \moment.timestamp, so it'll sort them. We say private var moments, which is an array of moment objects, and then query sort, whoops, I forgot the colon. Then in our content stack, we're going to show a streak view. So we will say streak view number of days, and we're going to pass in streak calculator dot calculate streak for moments, and then we set the frame max width to dot infinity, so now it centers the streaks. And so that's what we have for now. So right now we've added our streak, and it's based on the number of days, and we've used it here in the streak calculator. Now currently it says 1 days, whereas plural. We're going to fix that in the next video. But for now, this was a longer tutorial, but hopefully it makes sense. There was a lot we did. It's a pretty exciting stuff. There's so many things you can do with Swift UI, and it's fun to learn how to apply that. Let's go ahead and check our understanding now. Go back to the tutorial. Let's take a look here at the bottom, and we're going to check our understanding, see how we did. Okay, what is the purpose of FetchDescriptor in SwiftData? To describe how data should be fetched, to handle the structure of data, to save data in SwiftData. So I think it's this one, to describe how data should be fetched. Yep, FetchDescriptor describes the criteria, the sort order, and any additional configuration to use when performing a fetch. What is the difference between map and compact map when applied to an array? No difference. Map transforms every, while only non-optional. Both transform every, also discards optional results. Okay, so this is a little bit of a trick question, because I believe it's this one here. Compact map takes the transform of map and compacts the results into a non-optional array. The overlay modifier replaces the original view with another view. I'm going to say false. Overlay places a view on top of another view without replacing it. Sweet. Well, thank you again for watching. Please be sure to like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video.